Hello guys, nice to meet you again. Today I'm going to lecture on chapter 9, Staffing, Training and Compensation for Global Operations. Let's see. Today's chapter's learning goals are to understand the strategic importance to the form of the IHRM. It means International Human Resource Management function and its various responsibilities. Second is to learn about the major staffing options for global operations and the factors involved in those choices. Third, to emphasize the need for managing the performance of expatriates through careful selection, training, and compensation. Fourth one of this chapter's learning goal is to discuss the role of host country managers and the need for their training and appropriate compensation package. Last one is to distinguish among various IHRM practices around the world. Okay, let's see. The ability to staff subsidiaries in emerging market economies with local managers has become a major challenge in the race for recruiting and training local talent. Emerging economies such as Brazil, Russia, India, and China, we say it's the countries as BRIC countries. They have been developing so rapidly and have attracted increasing overseas investment that they have outpaced the supply of suitable middle-level and upper-level managers in their own markets. Here are in BRICS countries, there is shortage of mid and upper-level managers. Here in Brazil, as deficit at upper-level management. Russia, deficit at all management levels. And India, deficit starting at the middle level, also dealing with the brain drain. Brain drain means the outflow of intelligent and knowledgeable and sharp persons. And China has a severe deficit at all levels of management. These are the this is the trend of the shortage of mid and upper level managers in BRIC countries. What attracts the potential recruits in emerging markets? The first one is brand. A global name brand known for its excellence. The second is purpose. As a company that is breaking into new market with new models and strategy. Another attractive point is opportunity. A company that provides a fast-track training and career path. Last one is culture. It's an organizational culture of openness and transparency. What are the IHRM, International Human Resource Management functions? Here, 4 functions: recruitment and selection, and training and development, and compensation and performance management, and the last, the management expatriate. Okay, here, the staffing for global operations. There are 4 approaches. And first approach is ethnocentric approach. In ethnocentric approach, key managerial positions are filled with people from headquarters. It means parent country nationals. We say it's PCNs. Advantage of this approach include PCN familiarity with company goals, products, technology, policies, and procedures. Additionally, it can be a means of dealing with inadequate local managerial skills and of maintaining close control. Disadvantages include lack of opportunities and development for local managers and poor adaptation and lack of effectiveness of expatriates in foreign countries. This approach, this ethnocentric approach, also can perpetuate ineffective home country processes and prevent the company from taking advantage of the worldwide pool of management skill. Next approach is polycentric approach. It's often used with multinational strategy. The polycentric stepping approach is often used with multinational strategy and fills key position with host country nationals. We say it's HCNs. HCNs are local managers hired to fill key positions in their own country. This approach helps companies to act local, can be less expensive than using parent country nationals, and can help stave off problems in sensitive political situations. Often, this approach is achieved by acquiring foreign firms, and goals between the subsidiary and the parent company, conflicting loyalties from local managers and headquarters managers do not gain overseas experience. Next is global stepping approach. In the global stepping approach, the best managers are recruited from within or outside of the country, within or outside of the company, regardless of nationality. For example, third country nationals. Advantage of this approach include providing a great pool of qualified, willing applicants from which to choose, which can further develop a global executive cadre. Additionally, third country nationals, we say TCNs here. TCNs tend to be more culturally flexible, bi or multilingual, and viewed as an acceptable compromise between headquarters and local managers. It also can be more cost-effective to transfer and pay managers from some countries than from others because their pay scale and benefits packages are lower. As some become truly global and move away from the concept of host and home country, the term transpatriate is replacing the term expatriate. Implementing a global stepping approach is easier said than done. There can be difficulty in finding high-quality managers who are willing to transfer frequently around the world. With the regiocentric approach, recruiting is done on a regional base. This approach can produce a mix of PCNs, parent country nationals, HCNs, host country nationals, and TCNs here. TCNs, third country nationals, depending on the needs of company or the product strategy. Next. The choice of staffing policy has considerable influence on organizational variables in the subsidiary, such as locus of decision-making authority, the method of communication, and the perpetuation of human resource management practices. Some of these influences are highlighted in this slide here. Here, the strategic mode, organizational variables, and staffing orientation. The aspect of enterprise is ethnocentric approach viewpoint, polycentric, regiocentric, and global aspects. Some of these influences are highlighted in this slide, which summarize some of the information. It focuses on the other primary human resource functions. Research indicates that an ethnocentric policy is associated with a higher incidence of international human resource management problems. An important responsibility of international human resource managers instead of managing expatriates, expats. Most multinationals underestimate the importance of the human resource planning function in selection, training, and acculturation and evaluation of expatriates. Although there are many factors that contribute to expatriate success, many personal directors select expatriates only on the basis of their domestic track record and technical expertise. The need to ascertain whether potential expatriates have the necessary cross-cultural awareness and interpersonal skills is often overlooked. Studies suggest that there are 5 categories of success for expatriate. The success categories are shown at this slide. Here are job factors, relational dimensions, motivational state, family situation, and language skills. These 5 factors impact to successful categories. Research indicates that extroverted managers with high tolerance for stress are more likely to adjust to overseas assignment and perform well. Let's see. Here. Yeah. Here the managing experience selection. Here predictors of success are stress and tolerance, extraversion factors. How the expatriate overcome this kind of predictors. Many reasons besides poor selection contribute to expatriate failure in United States multinationals. Failure also can be attributed to poor preparation and planning for entry and re-entry transitions of the manager and his or her family. The suitability and adjustment of the spouse is particularly important and often given insufficient attention. Indeed, the rather spouse is the most frequently cited reason for expatriate failure in United States and European countries. This slide and the next provide a synthesis of the factors frequently mentioned by researchers and firms as the major causes of expatriate failure. The major reasons of expatriate failure are here. Selection based on just the headquarters criteria. And in education, preparation, training, and orientation. And alienation or poor support from headquarters. And inability to adapt to the local culture. They are the failure factors of expatriate performance. Next. After careful selection, plans must be made for the preparation, training, and development of expatriate manager. Though these issues are addressed separately in the following slide, it is important to note that they should be components of an integrated performance management program that is specific to expatriates. We need planning about this kind of issues. Problem with spouse and the children, insufficient compensation and financial support, poor programs for career support and repatriation. Let's see about expatriate training and development. Here are some examples of adjustment for expatriate in foreign countries. For example, in China, eating duck tongue and pigeon head is very strange, food. And then in Brazil, home phones don't work. Pervasive poverty in India. And in Indonesia, rent paid 2 or 3 years in advance. And in Japan, doctors reveal little to patients. There are so many kinds of this kind of difficult culture examples. Next. Unlike most United States companies, foreign companies tend to provide much more training and preparation. Thus, expatriates from certain countries tend to experience much fewer instances of failure. For example, in addition to training programs, Japanese companies have a very careful selection program that eliminate potential failures from the start. They also make use of longer assignments, longer than 5 years, to give expatriates more time to adjust initially and then function at the full capacity. Once on assignment, the Japanese receive considerable support from headquarters and sometimes even from local divisions set up for that purpose. Here are Japanese expatriate planning summary. Okay, here. There is a flow chart about international human resource management process to maximize effectiveness of expatriate assignment. Let's see. First is evaluate potential problems, select expatriate, develop contract, assess development and support need, evaluate effectiveness and problems, repatriate after successful assignment, and integrate value added to firm, and debrief expatriate and family. And it's the to improve IHRM process. As the multinational company make the most of this kind of process. The three areas critical to preparation are cultural training, language instruction, and familiarity with everyday matters. Training in language and practical affairs is fairly straightforward, but cross-cultural training is complex and deals with deep-rooted behaviors. One goal of cross-cultural training is to reduce culture shock. Here. What is culture shock? It's the state of disorientation and anxiety about not knowing how to behave in an unfamiliar culture. The goal is training is to ease the adjustment to the new environment. The cause of culture shock is the trauma people experience in new cultures, where they lose the familiar signs and cues that they had used to interact in daily life, and where they must learn to cope with new cues and expectations. Results of culture shock include the inability to work effectively, family stress, and hostility toward host nationals. Culture shock usually progresses through 4 stages. First stage is honeymoon phase. Phase include positive attitude and excitement and may last up to several weeks. Next, second phase is the irritation and hostility phase, is the crisis stage when cultural differences result in problems at home and work. It is characterized by homesickness, and many expatriates never get past this phase. Third stage is gradual adjustment, is a phase of recovery in which the expatriate begins to understand and predict patterns of behavior, use the language, and accept his or her new life. Last stage is biculturalism, is a stage in which the expatriate and family members grow to accept and appreciate local people and practices and are able to function effectively in 2 cultures. Many people never get to this stage but operate acceptably at the 3rd stage. Subculture shock occurs when a manager is transferred to another part of the country where there are cultural differences, essentially from what he or she perceives to be a majority culture to a minority one. The shock comes from feeling like an immigrant in one's own country and being unprepared for such differences. Next. What are training techniques for expatriate? Here are some training techniques for them. Area studies are documentary programs about the country's geography here, economics, social, political history, etc. Culture simulators expose trainees to the kinds of situations they are likely to encounter that are critical to successful interactions. Language training, sensitivity training, and field experiences are also training options. The latter provide exposure to people from other cultures within the trainee's own country. Host family surrogate is a kind of field experience in which the multinational companies pays for and places an expatriate family with a host family as part of an immersion and familiarization program. What kind of corporate programs to develop global managers? This slide shows examples of global management development program for junior employees. There are ABB company rotates 500 managers to different countries every 2 or 3 years. Pepsi company brings foreign managers to the United States for 1-year assignment. British Telecom uses informal mentoring between expatriates and potential assignees. As an example, Citibank gives advice on career planning. Citibank's advice to those considering global careers is that pursuing such careers can be very attractive. At the same time, though, Citibank offers several options for those who aren't ready for a long-term expatriate assignment. Okay, let's see. Be mobile to get somewhere. Be mobile. To get somewhere, you have to go places. There is growing need for a category of professionals with the global perspective to lead their organization. A global move is a good career move. Expatriate assignments offer an extraordinary opportunity for experiences, learning, and personnel and career enrichment. Next. Training program, right-stepping approaches, should be designed with the company's strategy in mind. The relative level of stage of globalization the firm has reached should be considered. This and the next 3 slides suggest levels of rigor and types of training content for globalization stages. Here, expert stage, this training need for to low to moderate contents are interpersonal skills, culture, customer values, business behavior, and train to understand patent, country products and policies for HCNs, host country nationals. In multi-domestic stages, training needs for moderate level to high. Contents are interpersonal skills, culture, technology transfer, business practices, and laws. And host country nationals need familiar with should be familiar with production and service procedures. Next. In multinational stage, high, moderate to high training need. Contents are interpersonal skills, two-way technology transfer, and so on. For host country nationals, training in technical areas, products and services, corporate culture. In last level, the high global stage, it's a high training need. Contents global corporate operation, corporate culture transfer, customers, global competitors, strategy. For HCNs, training in proficiency in production and efficient system, corporate culture, business system, global product policies. This is for integrating training with global orientation. This slide lists behaviors that can help or hinder expatriate integration with local staff. The information was collected from actual expatriate managers and can provide the base for expatriate training. It also can help HCNs to anticipate and work with expatriates to meet joint strategic objectives. The helping behaviors and hindrances are shown in the slide here. Let's see. Factors helping for integration of expatriate with local staff. So, forming close working relationship, learning local language, and so on. Or the factors hindering are not using team concept, not learning local language, arrogance, like this. Next is compensating expatriate. How to compensate expatriate. Compensation is a crucial link between strategy and its successful implementation. There must be fit between compensation and the goals for which the firm wants managers to aim. The premature return of expatriate or the unwillingness of managers to take overseas assignments can often be traced to their knowledge the assignment is financially detrimental. For example, DuPont's Global Transfer Center of Expertise creates perception of equity and goodwill. DuPont centralized its program for about 400 international locations in its Global Transfer Center of Expertise. Because of this centralization, expatriate know they are getting the same package. The Wall Street Journal estimates that sending a 100,000 US dollar a year manager to London, United Kingdom, can cost the organization 300,000 US dollar per year. However, sending the same manager to Stockholm, Sweden, or Tokyo, Japan, the cost may rise to 1 million US dollar. For this reason, many companies are looking for ways to cut the costs of expatriate assignments, such as by making assignments longer to cut down on relocation costs, or shorter, so that the family does not need to accompany the expatriate. Particularly challenging when it comes to designing expatriate compensation package is the need to reconcile parent and host country practices. Though there may be a little worldwide variation in typical executive-based salaries, wide variation in net spendable income is often present. United States executives may receive more in cash and stock, but must pay for many things. European companies provide cars, entertainment, allowances. Also, purchasing power is affected by the relative cost of income in different locations. In designing compensation packages, it is necessary to make sure expatriates can maintain a standard of living that is equivalent to their colleagues at home, and to compensate them for any additional costs incurred. Here are some methods for compensating expatriate. The balance sheet approach, tax equalization, components of the compensation package is in next slide. I will explain. Here are components of compensation package are salary, taxes, allowances, and benefits. Salary, local salary buying power versus home salary. This criteria. Taxes, this is to equalize any differential effects of taxes. Allowances, this means relocation expenses, the housing and trips, the home, and so on. Another benefits are health insurance, stock options. Yes. How to train host country nationals. The continuous training and development of HCNs and TCNs for management positions is also important in the long-term success of multinational corporations. The ongoing development of HCNs will facilitate the transition to the indigenization policy. It also is a way of bridging the gap between a firm's successful corporate culture and practices and local culture and practices. Additionally, managerial training in information and communication technologies is critical for firms in new economy and emerging market. They can provide leverage for rapid economic growth. As case successful case of Starbucks Java style in Beijing. Starbucks has achieved a remarkable penetration rate in China, given that it is a country of tea drinkers who do not readily take to the taste of coffee. Despite Starbucks' success to date in China, it has had trouble recruiting, motivating, and retaining managers in a country where the demand for local managers by foreign companies is far greater than the supply of managers with any experience in capitalist-style companies. Consequently, Chinese recruits are particularly interested in training and advancement opportunities because they know that managers with experience in Western organizations can always get a job. Recruits are trained in a management and Starbucks culture. 3 months Seattle training course, and to make copies in a real store. The training and the resulting trust and participation also serve as motivators. When designing host country national pay, there are many variables to consider. These variables include the local market and local pay scales, government involvement in benefits, the role of unions, and the cost of living. For example, Hungarians, Poles, and Czechs spend about 35 to 40% of their disposable incomes on food and utilities. Russians may spend as much as 75%. Thus, Eastern European managers must have cash for about 65 to 80% of their base pay, whereas the United States managers only have about 40% in cash. Multinational companies also can be competitive by providing goods and services that are either not available or very expensive in Eastern Europe. In Japan, compensation is becoming more westernized to become more competitive. For instance, they are beginning to base pay on performance rather than seniority, and are making people responsible for their own retirement fund decisions. Alternatively, Chinese workers often resist pay for performance, leading many Western companies to use salary increases. Companies also set up housing schemes, such as investing in apartment, as a way to compete for good managers. Here are compensations. There's 3 categories. This was researched by Professor Mary Ann Van Grino. She examined how and in what environments various organizations conducted their international human resource management functions. Her findings are highlighted in the Comparative Management in Focus. This and the following slide illustrate some of her findings for international human resource management function. The first column here, best practices, shows those practices that tend to be universal within the cultures studied. The second column, regional clusters, show countries or regions where those practices are similar. The third column, country specific. This column shows where those practices were unique to certain countries. Okay, here you can read these items here and here. Okay. Here. There are so many practices, comparative management in training and development. Here also continuously as the relation to strategy. It's the end of this chapter. Thank you for joining. See you next time. Bye.